Hello, welcome to episode of the Bubbs on Sports podcast. Today is Monday, August 21st. Hope everybody's having a good day so far and had a good rest of their day yesterday. Hope everybody had a good weekend. We've got a lot to get into today on the podcast. Another weekend of disappointment if you're a New York Yankees fan. If you're a Mets fan, it was a pretty successful weekend as they took 3 of 4 in St. Louis against the Cardinals. They will now head to Atlanta for 3 games against the Braves starting tonight. Yankees get swept. They lose 8 straight games for the first time since 1995. They are now 60-64 on the season, and they have now lost another series, swept in another series, and they get swept by the Red Sox and get dominated by the Red Sox and get embarrassed by the Red Sox. And the rivalry between the Yankees and the Red Sox isn't even a thing anymore. There's no juice. There's no excitement around it. It hasn't had juice for years. And this weekend was another example of that where there was no juice, no excitement. Yankees stink. Red Sox crushed them. And that was about the gist of the 3-game set this weekend at Yankee Stadium with Boston in town. So the Yankees will have a day off today, and then they'll get the Nationals tomorrow. They might honestly get swept by the Nationals because the Nationals have been playing a lot better. When you saw last night on Sunday Night Baseball, they took care of business against the Phillies in the Little League World Series Classic, 4-3. They got the job done there. Some late scoring for the Phillies, but they were able to still get the job done. Nationals are playing good baseball right now. Yankees are not. So I wouldn't be shocked if the Nationals come in and at least take 2 or 3 against the Yankees. They probably won't sweep them because the Yankees might take 1 game because the Nationals aren't that good. But I wouldn't be shocked if the Yankees lose the series because that's just the way the Yankees are right now. So we'll get into that later on. I want to start off the show today, though, talking a little bit of football. We got some big things to talk about with the New York Jets. So reports come out yesterday. Aaron Rodgers is expected to play this Saturday night against the New York Giants at MetLife Stadium in the preseason finale, game number 4 for the Jets, game number 3 for the New York Giants. So I want to get into that, give you my thoughts on that quickly, and then I want to turn it over to Becton. Had a very good game on Saturday night, continues to be one of the main discussions for this New York Jets team, continues to be one of the main discussions for this New York Jets offensive line, and him playing like he's playing right now is a big positive for this New York Jets offensive line with all the concerns that have been surrounding it over the last couple weeks of training camp. And really, throughout the entirety of training camp, the issue has been the offensive line. And with Becton playing well, especially at right tackle, expect him to get first-team reps at right tackle this week. That is a big-time positive for the Jets. We'll get into some numbers, describe what Becton's done, and kind of give you the projected outlook on this offensive line as we are officially 3 weeks out from the start of Week 1 in the NFL, or the start of the Jets-Bills week. We're 3 weeks out from Jets-Bills, less than 3 weeks out from Lions-Chiefs, which officially starts the NFL season on Thursday, September 7th. We'll get to the Yankees later on. We'll get to the debacle they had in Boston over the weekend, discuss it a little bit, talk about what went wrong, and really, this Yankee team continues to just embarrass themselves. Where do they go from here the rest of the way? Call up the young guys. Who should they call up? And what do the Yankees need to do here on out the rest of this season, which is going nowhere? We'll get to that later on. So we'll start today, and obviously the Mets as well tonight against the Braves. We'll get you ready for that. So we'll start today with a little bit of football as the Jets and Giants both enter. The NFL enters the final week of the preseason. So 3 weeks out from today is Week 1, Jets-Bills. We're less than 3 weeks out. Actually, 2 weeks this Thursday will be Lions-Chiefs, Thursday Night Football to open up the season. And then yesterday marked officially 3 weeks until the first full Sunday of NFL football. So the football season is right around the corner. The excitement is at a very high level right now if you're a Jets fan and if you're a New York Giants fans, because both teams have high expectations. And if you're a Jets fan, everything has gone right so far this offseason with Aaron Rodgers. You want to come away from this game healthy. You want to go into Buffalo healthy and ready to go. And you want to start up the season and hopefully the start of what is a very successful run for the New York Jets both this year and obviously next season if Rodgers does return. Obviously, that's way down the road. But this is the start of the Aaron Rodgers era here coming up in 3 weeks, which is very exciting. So before I get the Becton here, because that's that's one of the other topics I want to get to here as well. But the big story was yesterday. Brian Costello, the New York Post, reporting that Aaron Rodgers is expected to play on Saturday against the New York Giants. 6 Eastern, MetLife Stadium, the finale for the preseason. The Jets' 4th preseason game. Obviously, the Giants' 3rd preseason game. They lost against Detroit, got the job done against the Panthers. Jets obviously 1-2 coming in. Lost against the Browns, beat Carolina, lost against the Bucs. Not that any of that matters. But either way, game number 3 for the Giants, game number 4 for the Jets. Preseason week number 3, the finale, he's expected to play. And this has been something that has been talked about over the last couple weeks. You know, even going into the preseason, there was a lot of people that was wondering, would Aaron Rodgers play at all in the preseason? Is it necessary to play? Should he play in the preseason? You've had fans come up with the topic of, yes, he should. Some people don't think he should. Some people are kind of standing in the middle as if they kind of see both sides of it. I kind of see both sides of it. You just are, the biggest thing you're worried about is the injury aspect. The biggest thing you're worried about is you just want to see him and the rest of the starters who are expected to play, you want to see them come away from the game healthy. You want to see them come away from the game. It is a meaningless game. It is the final game of the preseason. You want to come away from the game healthy, ready to go for week 1, because that's what actually matters. And I also think, too, when you look at this, you know, when you look at this Jet team, like, or when you look at Aaron Rodgers, I should say, not the Jets, but when you look at Aaron Rodgers, the way I look at it is, I know there's a portion of the fan base that feels he needs it, but Aaron Rodgers hasn't played a preseason game since 2018. His back-to-back MVP seasons, he did not play in the preseason. So the notion that Aaron Rodgers needs to play in the preseason game is not really true because he hasn't played in one since 2018. And his back-to-back years and, you know, his back-to-back seasons where he won MVP, he didn't play in a preseason game. So this isn't like if he plays on Saturday, it's going to make or break what Aaron Rodgers does this season. If anything, it's more of just a drive, give him a couple handoffs, maybe a quick pass, get him out of there healthy, just to get the feel of things, and that's about it. Because, again, you can't, like, if I'm looking at it right now as the aspect of why he doesn't really need to play. Well, again, he's not a rookie. It's not like he needs to go out there and see live game action. Number 2, he doesn't need to learn a new system. He knows the system. So there's been some arguments saying, oh, it's for him to learn the system and get comfortable. He doesn't need to. He knows the system. It's Nathaniel Hackett's system. He was in there in Green Bay. The guy's been in the league, Super Bowl champion, 4-time NFL MVP. He doesn't really need any of this preseason action. You could also look at it, though, from a perspective of getting out there in a building, just getting comfortable with his new, because, again, a lot of these guys are still new teammates, just getting comfortable in-game action, a drive or two with your new teammates. And I can understand that. Because game action's different. You know, maybe get a pass or two to Garrett Wilson just to build that chemistry in-game, because it's different to do that in practice and to actually do it in a game. And I trust they'll be fine in the game, but to just continue to build that chemistry actually in a game environment with the Garrett Wilson, with these other guys, with the tight ends. My biggest thing is with Aaron Rodgers, it's got to be a drive or two. And the Jets did this last year, and again, that's probably going to be the case, but the Jets did this last year, Robert Saleh, where they played the starters for like a drive or two against the Giants last season as really a tune-up for Baltimore. So the Jets are really using this more as a tune-up here for Buffalo. So that's why I know a lot of people are surprised. That's why I'm not really surprised, because I know Saleh likes to do that. Play guys before a preseason, or play guys in the preseason finale before week 1 to kind of use it as a tune-up for week 1 more than anything else. Although it does seem like this is Aaron Rodgers who wants to play, whether it's just getting comfortable with the teammates around him in an actual game environment to get a drive or two, whatever it is, the Jets need to make sure they protect him. You need to make sure you put your best 5 offensive linemen up front. If Dwayne Brown's healthy, put him out there. I do not want to see a world where Aaron Rodgers drops back and gets crushed. That is the last thing you need as a New York Jets fan. You need to keep him upright. You need to keep him healthy, especially if the Giants are playing backups. You know they're going to play hard. You know they're going to play extra hard. You need to keep him upright. You need to keep him healthy. You cannot throw Aaron Rodgers out there this weekend. And that's why I'm kind of hesitant on how to feel about this. I will feel better about it if we're putting out 5 good offensive linemen. If we're putting Billy Turner on Rodgers' blind side in the preseason game on Saturday, I'm going to go into it feeling really bad, because Billy Turner on Rodgers' blind side should not be happening. if we're putting Dwayne Brown on Rodgers' blind side and Becton at right tackle, you're like, okay, this is all right. Get through it, 1 or 2 drives, come away healthy, and get ready for Buffalo, which actually matters. And that's when things actually count. Not a preseason game that is meaningless in week number 3 and your 4th game of the preseason. So I understand both sides of it. I do. I mean, it'll be cool to watch him play a drive or two to get the first Aaron Rodgers in-game, in-game action of his NFL career. Get the fans a little bit into it. Give you a little bit more anticipation watching a preseason game because there is none. But season's what matters. And I understand the concerns around putting him out there. Does he really need it? There's both sides of this. There's the side of saying, throw him out there, give him a quarter or two, or not a quarter or two, I apologize, a drive or two. Or, there's also people that say he doesn't need it. He hasn't played in the preseason forever. He's a veteran. Like, he doesn't need to learn a new system. There's all those different things. So, what side do you fall? I kind of fall in the middle where I'm more leaning towards, I'm not that surprised that he's playing. Because I did say this earlier in the preseason. I thought, if anything, he might play the final game against the Giants. I just want everybody to come away healthy. So I'm not really leaning towards, I really want to see him out there. I would prefer Rodgers just sit and watch. But again, if it's only one drive and it's 3-4 plays, it's maybe a handoff, a quick pass to Lazard or Garrett Wilson on a slant or something like that, or a quick flat route, just to get him the field, just to get him, get some action with his new teammates in game. 3, 4, 5 plays, maybe 2 drives. If that's all it is, mostly handoffs and maybe a couple passes, then I'm fine with that because that's protecting him. That's making sure he's staying healthy. If you're going out there and having him pass the football 10 times, then that's bad. But we'll see. We'll see what the Jets do. I think you got to play it safe. I think 1 drive is probably 2 drives most likely, but 1 drive ideal. I mean, just look, if it could be 1 drive and he could, 6, 7 plays, let's say it's a long drive, do a couple handoffs, a pass or 2, get him off the field, get him ready for Buffalo. That's all I really look at this. So it's an interesting conversation. Hit me up, comments down below. What are your thoughts on this? Should Rodgers play? Should Rodgers not play? If he does play, how much? And is it really and that's the aspect I look at it from. Is it really necessary to play Aaron Rodgers this week? Like, is it really necessary? I don't know. I mean, not really. I mean, sure, there's probably benefits of it. Just to learn your new teammates, just to get a feel for your new teammates, even if it's just a couple plays, in-game action. But he's had all the practice time. They've had the joint practices. He's Aaron Rodgers, after all. He's been in the league forever. That's the part where you say it's probably not that necessary. He hasn't played in the preseason forever. Why is this any different? It's an interesting spot, but we'll see. Looks like he'll play, which will give you a little bit more anticipation to watch a preseason game because the preseason games, these have been some lousy games, especially when you get into the 3rd and 4th quarter. These preseason games are terrible in the 3rd and 4th quarter. I mean, watching Tim Boyle play football is rough. So, and then again, that's what I do. I mean, I would like to see Zach just go out there and just throw Zach out there the whole game. We don't need to see any more Tim Boyle. Play Rodgers a drive or 2. Send Zach out there and let Zach play the whole game. He's going to be the backup. I don't think there's any sense in carrying emergency number 3 on the roster because if there is a case where Tim Boyle has to come in, you're done. Tim Boyle stinks. I mean, watching him throw a football, watching him play quarterback in the preseason has been awful. So just throw Zach out there for the whole game after that. But if not, you get to see more of Zach for a half and then probably Boyle for a half if Rodgers is going to play. But depending on how much he plays, obviously depends on how much you'll see Zach and Boyle out there as well. So we go into the next story here for the Jets, and that is Mekhi Becton. And going into training camp, Mekhi Becton was one of the biggest stories on the entire roster. It was one of the biggest stories on this team. Obviously, Rodgers was a big headline. The defense a big. There's so many different headlines with the Jets because it was Rodgers, Hard Knocks, so many different headlines. But one of the bigger headlines, one of the bigger stories came with Mekhi Becton coming into camp. And obviously hasn't played in 2 years, got hurt in week 1 against Carolina in 2021, missed all of that year after that week 1 injury, then missed all last season after he got hurt again in training camp, needed another surgery on his knee, missed all last season, came into this season with, kind of a different mindset, lost a lot of weight, put on more muscle, just looks a lot more. He's just quicker. He put, less weight on his knees, less weight for him to carry. Like he's in better shape. He's a lot better shape than he was his first even 3 years in his NFL career, even his rookie year where he was so good. And the biggest question with Becton going in, and I continue to say this, the biggest question with Mekhi Becton going into training camp was, there was two. The one was, this was a smaller question because I think we all still believed that he could still play at a high level, but it was how much. It was endurance. Can he stay healthy and play at a high level? We knew what Mekhi Becton was capable of. We knew he was capable of being one of the better offensive tackles in football. We knew he's always been capable of being that run mauler, that guy that just pancakes guys. We've always known that about Mekhi Becton. The biggest question with Becton was, could he go out and could he stay healthy? Could he build up enough endurance? Can he play a full game? And if you remember, I mentioned this, I think on my Jets podcast, or I might have actually also mentioned on here. He played 7 snaps in week 1 of the Hall of Fame game. Played fine in those 7 snaps, but he only played 7 snaps. And that was concerning. Yes, he played well, but it was 7 snaps. Could you truly trust him to go out there in a real game and play at a high level and play for a full game? And the last 2 weeks, he's proved that. He played 27 snaps in Carolina, and he played 28 snaps on Saturday night against Tampa. And he played very well in those 28 snaps. And you look at it, and he's played very well in all 3 preseason games. And what's different about this week than last week and the week prior, he did it at right tackle. And that was a question I think a lot of people were starting to wonder was, why hasn't Mekhi Becton gotten action at right tackle all camp? Like, up until this week or last week, he was playing left tackle every day at training camp. In every preseason game, every joint practice, he was at left tackle. And then all of a sudden last week, he switched over to right tackle. Why did the New York Jets wait all that time until middle through August, less than a month away from the season, to shift him over the right tackle? I'm not sure. But either way, obviously, he was doing stuff behind the scenes because he's come out of right tackle and looked great. And he deserves every opportunity this week to get work with the number 1s at right tackle because he's been primarily working with the 2s at left tackle. Now the next test is work against the 1s in practice at right tackle, go out there on Saturday, work against the 1s at right tackle against the Giants, and that's your final test. And Becton should be your starting right tackle week 1. It's kind of crazy how over the last week this has really just picked up because it was left tackle, left tackle, left tackle. And then everybody was wondering, okay, then if he plays left tackle, what is Becton? What are you going to do with Dwayne Brown? What's right tackle now? How's that situation unfolding? But him shifting over the right tackle this quickly and playing this well, and now getting reps, he should get reps with the 1 this week. Your offensive line now, which has been a major concern, is now starting to take shape because hopefully Laken Tomlinson and AVT are back. Those are your 2 guards. AVT at right guard, Laken Tomlinson at left guard. If I had to guess, I think Connor McGovern's most likely your center. Again, I'm fine with that. Center's never really been a concern. It's been more of who's going to play center, and I think it's probably going to be McGovern. I don't think Tittman wins that job. I think he got hurt as well in the preseason game. Hopefully it's nothing major, but I just don't see Tittman winning that. I think McGovern's going to win that job. So McGovern center, your guards are set at AVT and Laken Tomlinson. And now your tackles primarily are set because you feel good now about Becton at right tackle. The final test really is him against the 1s. And you would like to think he passes that. He's shown enough to show you that he should have no issue passing it against the 1s because he's played so well against the 2s. You expect him to go out there and play really well against the 1s if he continues to do what he did. But, he's passed every test with flying colors. He has. I mean, he passed the test this weekend easily. Go out there and play right tackle in a game. A lot to ask for when you only practice about a day or 2 at right tackle. And he went out there, and he was at right tackle. Now, he was second, obviously. He was second-team offensive line. Now you give him those first-team reps. But on Saturday night, he was great. So, against the Bucs, he played 28 snaps. So he went from 7 to 27 to 28 snaps. So the endurance is there. An 85 PFF grade. He had a 76.7 pass blocking grade, and he had a 90.2 run blocking grade. He also had a couple pancakes. And that's the Mekhi Becton you saw in his rookie year, was pancakes, just a absolute mauler on the offensive line that can just destroy edge rushers, destroy defensive linemen, and you saw that on Saturday against the Bucs. That was vintage Mekhi Becton. And this stat, too, I think pops out as well. Against the Bucs on Saturday, the New York Jets ran for 105 yards. 76 of those 105 yards came when Becton was on the field. When Becton was off the field, the Jets had 8 carries for 29 yards. When Becton was on the field, 8 carries for 76 yards. He was present in the passing game, present in the running game. First true test as a right tackle, he passed. Now, it's first team reps. He does well there. You send him out there on Saturday, give him more first team reps in game, and you start to feel really good about, a lot better about the offensive line than you felt even just last week. Where last week, you continue to have Mitchell and Turner rotating in at left tackle, right tackle, so using them as the swing tackles. You've had, one day Tippmann's at guard, the next day another guy's at guard. Does AVT play tackle? And then who's your guard? Then do you have to pick somebody else up? Who's then the set? So many missing, so many just wild predictions, so many crazy different combinations that could have happened for the New York Jets. And now you look at it, and the offensive line probably ends up panning out the way we all thought it would be. Dwayne Brown at left tackle, Mekhi Becton at right tackle, your guards AVT and your guards from left to right, Lincoln Tomlinson and AVT, and your center most likely McGovern. And you feel good about that going into week 1. You feel a whole lot better about that going into week 1 than Max Mitchell and Billy Turner being your left tackle, especially if Billy Turner's on the blind side. Although most likely it'd probably be Max Mitchell on the blind side. You feel a lot better about that. Now, the other test is, there still are things that the Jets have to pass here. You still need to see Dwayne Brown out there. I don't know if we'll see Dwayne Brown back at practice this week. Hopefully he can get back out there soon because we're 3 weeks away from the NFL season. This is the last week this is it. This is the last preseason game. After this, you get a bye week, which obviously teams still practice and stuff. You get a bye week, and I think it's a mandatory 4 days off. The NFLPA requires. This is really how it plays out here. Because, so the Jets, this week's still training camp. And then there's a preseason game against the Giants. Then next week, I think there's 2-3 practices. And then the NFLPA requires, the Players Association requires, I think, a mandatory 4 days off for teams. So I believe, and I think it's different, obviously, for the Chiefs and the Lions. Because they obviously get, it's different for them because they have the Thursday night game, so their schedule's a little bit different. But I think I think the Jets then return, though I think it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday they're off. I think it's a mandatory 4 days they're off. And then they come back Monday, which would be a week, which is 2 weeks from today. And then the real thing begins. And that's preparation week for Buffalo. So in terms of Dwayne Brown, you would like to have him back maybe this week because this is it for training camp. Then next week you have practice. You have a couple practice days before the mandatory 4 days off, and then it's Buffalo week. You don't want to just implement Dwayne Brown on Buffalo week, So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And again, I would like to think if the Jets are going to play Aaron Rodgers and the Jets are going to play the starters, I would like to think that means the starting offensive line is going to be in front of them. And hopefully that means it's Dwayne Brown at left tackle. I know Saleh isn't sure if AVT and Lincoln Tomlinson will return this week from their injuries that they're dealing with. AVT, obviously, an ankle, and I think Lincoln Tomlinson's something with his leg. So hopefully Dwayne Brown comes back, but you feel a lot better about it. And again, you look at it as a full picture. I talked about Becton these 3 preseason games. He's been great. 63 snaps, 1 sack allowed, 2 pressures, 0 penalties, 82 PFF grade, and an 88.9 run blocking grade. I mean, that is very good for a guy that hasn't played in 2 years. And very good for a guy that a lot of people were concerned with going in. You got to give Becton a lot of credit. Again, still has a couple tests to pass, but you've got to feel really good about Mekhi. I will tell you this. I feel really good about this is the best I felt about Mekhi Becton all summer long. Because even when he was doing well at left tackle, I was still questioning, okay, then where does Dwayne Brown fit in when he comes back? Because Dwayne Brown's not going to play right tackle. And if you want your best 5 guys out there, which Saleh continues to talk about, Dwayne Brown is your left tackle, Becton's your right tackle. That's your best tackle combo. Not Max Mitchell at left or Max Mitchell at left or Billy Turner at right, Max Mitchell at right or Billy Turner at right. Your best tackle combo is Dwayne Brown at left and Mekhi Becton at right. And it's forming. It's starting to come true, and we're starting to see it. So there's a lot to like here about Becton, and hopefully the offensive line going into the final week of training camp as preparations get closer and closer for week 1 against Buffalo. So the offensive line, which has been a major concern, is starting to play itself out. And you hope that it really plays itself out the rest of the week, and you go into Saturday's game. If they're going to play the starters, well, you better put if you're going to play Rodgers, you better, as I mentioned, you better put a starting offensive line in front of Rodgers. I better not see Billy Turner on Rodgers' blind side on Saturday. If Dwayne Brown can't play, I don't even know if you play Rodgers. Because you want to want Becton at right tackle. I don't even know if you could trust anybody else to protect Rodgers' blind side on Saturday if Dwayne Brown's not out there. So that then throws into the whole conversation of should Rodgers even play anyway. Is it really going to... And that's just back to Rodgers. Is it really going to make a difference if he plays 8 plays on Saturday? Is that going to make a difference on whether or not the New York Jets have a successful season? Probably not. But we'll see. It's a very important week. Very important week for the New York Jets. As we get set for the Saturday preseason game, the offensive line continues to play itself out. And also, you've got still some couple competitions in different spots. Like receivers, 6 receiver spots still open. Brownlee and Gibson are the final 2 men in the race. I don't know. At the beginning of camp, I was leaning more towards Jason Brownlee. I think every Jets fan was. He was the big star of camp in terms of just what he was doing. But now with Xavier Gibson's ability as a special teams returner, I don't know. I don't know if Brownlee then fits in as much as maybe I thought he would. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting for sure. So we move on now to a little bit of baseball. And the pathetic baseball season that has been the New York Yankees. Not a whole lot more to say. When it comes to the Yankees, all you can really say is thank goodness that baseball season or football season is right around the corner, 3 weeks away. And next week on Monday, actually a week from today, I will start my division predictions for each team. So each day up until Thursday, September 7th, will be a division prediction. I will give you each division, where I think each team's going to stand, and that's going to be that. So we'll have that a week from today. So next Monday, we'll have that coming out. So stay tuned for that. So thank goodness football season right around the corner. That's all you can say, because the baseball season continues to stink. It's crazy to me. I will start off with this right out of the gate. The New York Mets are not trying to win. The New York Mets sold at the deadline. And again, I've given them credit a lot on this show for doing that. So this isn't a knock on the Mets. This is a knock on the Yankees. But the Mets are not trying to win. They are 58-67. They are 7 games out of a wild card spot in the National League. When you look at the Yankees, now I know when you watch the Yankees, it doesn't seem like they're trying to win because they're so bad. But the Yankees still think that they can win, or at least expect to win, with this fraud lineup that they're putting out there every single day. And my point is, the Mets are 7 games out of a wild card spot right now. The New York Yankees are 9 games out on a wild card spot right now. So the New York Mets, who aren't even trying to win, sold at the deadline, are currently, when you look at it in terms of games out, have a better chance of making the playoffs than the New York Yankees, who, according to them, still feel like they can make the playoffs, still feel like they're this really good team, still feel like they're smarter than everybody else, and still feel like this team's good enough to make a run. Which I don't know how much more you have to see to realize that they're not going anywhere. If you're still a Yankee fan that believes in this team, I'm sorry, I don't know where you see it. I don't. I mean, even Garrett Cole got crushed this weekend, and he's been great, but Even he got crushed. So if your idea was, the starting pitching or Garrett Cole could carry us, well, he got crushed this weekend too. I don't think there's any Yankee fan that still believes in this team, but if there is, I don't know why you would still believe in this team. I mean, the team stinks. The team isn't going anywhere. The future is shot with this team. I mean, they're not going anywhere at all. Next year after that, it's gonna be a while because this team tied themselves into even worse contracts, like Stanton's contract, like Rodon's contract now, 2 contracts that he probably won't get off of. I mean, those 2 contracts are terrible, and Rodon especially because he's 6 starts into his contract and it already looks like a train wreck, and he's $162 million deal, and he's only in year 1 of that 6-year deal, so you got 5 more years left of that. Nobody's going to want Stanton. Nobody's going to want Rodon. The Yankees, again, should have made moves, and I go back to this. I mean, just thinking about, the Yankees this weekend, and again, I'm not going to sit here and rant because I've ranted enough about this team. I'm not going to sit here and continue to rant about the team when they're not going anywhere. They're just not. So there's not much else I have to say. But, just looking back on it, ultimately this all began, just looking back on the way the Yankees are run and where this thing went wrong. Because again, I know hindsight's always 20/20, but when a season collapses this badly, just as a fan, you kind of have to look back on, where did this thing go wrong? And I didn't necessarily look back at this season because I think so many things went wrong this year in terms of the pitch, the hitting's been, the lineup's been awful. The pitching to a certain point this year was good, but there was so many games where the Yankees just couldn't hit. The hitting was awful. There really wasn't much that went wrong this year. It was just the lack of talent on this roster. There isn't much talent in this lineup. Again, the Yankees, I said this so many times, but the Yankees rolled out the same line, and I know some people didn't realize that. And again, I understand opening day. You go back to opening day, and I'll go back even further here in a second, but you go back to opening day, the excitement's there. Everybody, everybody's 0-0. Everybody's got World Series aspirations on opening day, because the optimism's at an all-time high. Mostly teams are rolling out their best lineup on opening day if everybody's healthy. And then the grind of the season starts, and you get injuries, you get poor performances, and that all happens. But opening day, the New York Yankees rolled out the same exact lineup that they rolled out in the ALCS outside of Anthony Volpe. That was it. That was the only change that the Yankees made to this lineup, was rolling out Anthony Volpe. That was the only difference. And when you look at it, Matt Carpenter was in the lineup last year in the ALCS. Anthony Volpe was in the lineup this year. So that was the only thing. That was what he replaced. Anthony Volpe was the only change to this lineup. So, you saw this coming. You knew this was coming. It's on the front office. It's on everybody. But, let's be honest here. Just continuing to watch this collapse. I mean, I've barely even paid attention to the team at this point because it's so bad. And, with the preseason football going on, following the Jets, there's so much other stuff that you want to spend your time watching other than this baseball team that provides no excitement whatsoever. Even in games that they win, I mean, even yesterday, they were winning, or they tied the game, and they blew it in the 9th. Again, Clay Holmes coming in, doing Clay Holmes things. That's something else that the Yankees need to get figured out. They haven't had a closer in years. I mean, Chapman was all right for a couple years, but, the last 2-3 seasons for Chapman were ugly, where he was very, very inconsistent. The Yankees need to invest in a reliever. They got to invest in a lot, or not a reliever, a closer. I'm tired of trying to make Clay Holmes. Clay Holmes is not a closer, and I said that going into the offseason. So many fans have said that going into the offseason. Get a closer. Get a legitimate closer, other than Clay Holmes. Bring in somebody up. Bring in a legitimate closer. They didn't do that. Bring in another big-time bat. The Yankees didn't do a single thing on. The Yankees' moves this offseason on offense were calling up Anthony Volpe and re-signing Aaron Judge. Those were their moves. Is that going to put you over the top? No, it's not. It's not. Not at all. So, realistically, does this even come by surprise if you're a Yankee fan? Not really. Because you just continue to see them rack up L's. At the end of the day, they went into this season with the same exact lineup, minus Volpe, as they did going into the ALCS, where they got swept in 4 games. And we all went into the offseason last year after they got swept saying that they were light years behind the Astros, and they've got to get to work, and they've got to restart, they've got to reset, they've got to get faster, they've got to get more contact driven, higher on base driven. They've got to just get all around better. They've got to reset the way they do things. And they went into this year, continued with that mindset of we're smarter than everybody else, we're better than everybody else, even though we're the worst team in our division. And they only set themselves further back because they've got themselves tied into that Rodon contract now, throw that onto many other bad contracts, and they didn't do a single thing. So they just wasted another year. And the teams in their division are only getting better. The Blue Jays, the Rays, the Red Sox, and the Orioles. The Orioles are the biggest one. The Orioles got Gunnar Henderson, Adley Rutschman. The only thing the Orioles are legitimately missing is an actual, an ace to lead their rotation, which I'm sure they can go out and get potentially in a trade or free agency. I mean, there are a couple, like a Julio Urias is available this year. I don't know if Julio Urias is a solid pitcher. I don't know if the Orioles, that's the only thing the Orioles are lacking is a legitimate ace. The Orioles got a very good bullpen. They've got one of the best bullpens in baseball. Yanier Cano. They've got Felix Bautista, who's been one of the best closers in baseball. The only thing they're lacking is a legitimate number one ace in their rotation. That's about it. Other than that, they're one of the best teams in baseball this year. They're only getting better. And don't forget, they've got Jackson Holliday coming up the pipeline. He's the number one prospect in all baseball. Stud. Who do the Yankees have coming up? Not many. I mean, I know we've got Everson Pereira. I would call up Pereira right now. I know Austin Wells has been playing good. Do you call up Austin Wells? Yesterday, this just shows you how sad the Yankees-Red Sox rivalry has become. 2 outs in the bottom of the ninth yesterday. Out of all the years of the rivalry, right? All the big names that have played in the Yankees-Red Sox rivalry. The guy coming up last night, or yesterday afternoon, in the bottom of the ninth with 2 outs, game on the line, was Ben Rortvedt. Ben Rortvedt. That was the guy last night that came up, or yesterday afternoon, whatever you want to say, came up in the bottom of the ninth with 2 outs. It was Ben Rortvedt. And I think that just shows you, too, how dead the Red Sox-Yankees rivalry is. I mean, how many times have we seen legendary moments in the Yankees-Red Sox rivalry between 2 all-time greats? And last night, I keep saying last night, but yesterday, it was Ben Rortvedt up in the big spot. Ben Rortvedt. The guy's batting average is below 100. It's like a 0.85 batting average. It's hitting like .85. That's Ben Rortvedt's batting average. He's the one up. Another position they just failed to address. But, again, I mean, the Yankees, a lot of people have been using the term, they've been leaking oil for a while. They have been. To me, these failures go all the way back to 2017, where they fired Joe Girardi after he took the team that not many people expected to go anywhere to an ALCS game number 7 against the Houston Astros, who come to find out were cheating. I know that doesn't matter. I know you don't want to hear that, but they were. So he took a team to 7 games against the Astros at the beginning of the Astros dynasty, where they've won, obviously, 3 times in the last, whatever it's been, 5 years or whatever. Obviously winning last year, 2019, and then 2017, right? I think that's it. Is that I think that's the 3. They probably, I think that's about it. But that's what he took. And they fired Girardi that season. And in 2018, it all began to go downhill. Because they brought in Aaron Boone. He does nothing. He's a puppet, doesn't do anything. He's not a good manager. Like, Boone's not a good manager. He's not. He's just a statue. His bullpen decisions aren't good. Not that he has much control. It's just a problem. He's not even if Boone had control, I really don't even know if he'd make much of a good manager. There's no accountability on this team from top down. But that's where the issues arose. Was after that 2017 campaign, because Joe Girardi held guys accountable. He made decisions. And the Yankees, after 2017, thought it would be a good idea to go all in on this analytical approach. Mess up the farm system, mess up the young talent that were a part of that 2017 team. And what's eye-opening is, and I mentioned this a couple times, the last time the Yankees have been back or the last time the Yankees were closest to the World Series was 2017. Aaron Boone, Brian Cashman, and this new analytical approach that they installed in 2018 has not gotten them close to a World Series. That hasn't. That just shows you they haven't gone back to that point where they were in Game 7 of the ALCS. I know they were in Game 6 of the ALCS in 2019, but 2017 was the last time they were closest to a World Series. So really, they've only gotten worse since Aaron Boone and Brian Cashman and Hal Steinbrenner decided to be a good idea to throw this whole analytical twist on things, and the Yankees, stopped developing young players. They never invested in the farm system. I've been saying fire Cashman since that moment. I thought they should have got rid of him the day he fired Joe Girardi. I don't understand what the point was of firing Girardi after he took a team with no expectations to the ALCS. That made no sense to me. But, again, it's Brian Cashman, it's Hal Steinbrenner, and it's this Yankee organization. That's just the way they're run. And the only way that's going to change it is if they blow it up. And I think Boone's fired because I do think there's going to be a scapegoat for all this. There has to be. But I don't think Cashman's going to get fired. I really don't. I don't think Cashman's going to get fired. I think Cashman's going to stick around because he's basically a part of the Steinbrenner family. He's been a part of the organization for whatever it's been, 25, 30 years. And he hasn't, what has he done? What has he done in the last 6 years other than miss out on so many good players? You continue to watch all these other guys like Matt Olson being one of the big ones. Rizzo's been all right, but you see Matt Olson taking the league by storm right now, absolutely dominating. He was a guy that the Yankees could have got. Instead, they settled for plan B and C. This is not the Yankees as they once were, and that's something else that I'm just sick and tired of hearing about, is this whole notion of, the Yankee brand, all this. Like, the Yankees are not the Yankees of what they used to be. They aren't. Like, they just aren't. They just aren't. Like, the Yankees are not the Yankees of the night. They're just not the Yankees that they once were. I know there's still this big-name organization there. They've got a ton of them, obviously, but they're just not. Like, they don't give off that same vibe of the Yankees. When you're watching the team, there's no excitement. There hasn't been much excitement watching this team in a very long time. Like, legitimate excitement about a really good Yankee team. There hasn't been. The Yankees organization went from one of the greatest organizations in all sports to winning championships, getting to the World Series, just dominating, having some of the greatest seasons we've ever seen from sports franchises ever. The 98 Yankees were one of the greatest teams we've ever seen in all four of the major sports. What the Yankees have turned into now is a just-get-in organization. And that's why they're not the Yankees that they once were, because any organization can be a just-get-in organization. And that's what the Yankees are. They're not a Hal Steinbrenner, Brian Cashman, and Aaron Boone. They're not in hot pursuit to win a championship. That's not their whole goal. Their goal is, let's get to the postseason, and as long as we get to the postseason, we consider it a success. We consider it a success. And that's the way the Yankees run. That's the way the Yankees operate now. And that is why they didn't sell at the deadline. That is why they didn't do anything at the deadline. Because they still think, again, go back to the smarter than everybody else. They still think they're so much smarter. They still think that they're so good, that they know what they're doing, that they, instead of going out and selling and recognizing we're not going anywhere this year, let's act like, like the Yankees roster, we know our roster matches up really well against the Texas Rangers and the Houston Astros and the Baltimore Orioles and the Dodgers and the Braves. Like, watching that Braves series, which I've watched with very little, I barely, even when I do watch the Yankees, it's with very little interest at this point because the season's over. But you even watch that Braves series. We talked about how far the Yankees were behind last year coming off the field against Houston. They walked off the field. Houston was celebrating at Yankee Stadium after sweeping the Yankees. They walked off that field last year. That was a true wake-up call in terms of how far behind they were. I also look at it as they walked off the field in Atlanta, and that was a true wake-up call of how far they were when it comes to beating a team like the Braves. You want to be a World Series contender, You want to get to the World Series. You want to do great things. Majority of these teams are built off of farm systems. Majority of these teams are built, they're homegrown. Sure, there's some big name signings. The Braves have mixed in a couple, Matt Olson being one of them. But the primarily these teams, the base is the farm system. The core of the team is the farm. The Yankees, the way they've built their teams in the last couple years is let's go out and bring in washed talent, give a ton of bad contracts out, and hope it works. And again, there's been so many different occasions of the Yankees just ignoring their biggest flaws. They haven't addressed left field in years. They haven't addressed left field because they thought, again, smarter than everybody else, Aaron Hicks is good. When anybody that watched a smidge of it, you didn't have to be a baseball genius. Again, I said this the other day. You don't have to stare at Baseball Savant every day, looking at all the analytics, looking at all the numbers of every single player in the MLB to realize that Aaron Hicks wasn't any good. The Yankees, they still had this whole thought process that Aaron Hicks was still really good. They still had this whole thought process that Josh Donaldson, with an analytical approach, could turn into the Josh Donaldson we saw 8 years ago. 8 years ago. You're asking a guy to do what he did 8 years ago. I mean, come on now. Come on, really? So, again, the Yankees they've just digged themselves in a deeper hole because they've got themselves tied into another bad contract now with Rodon. You got to blow it up. Everybody's on the table except Judge, Cole, and Rodon. Or not Rodon. I'm sorry, Volpe. And the unfortunate part is nobody's going to take on. And Stanton's got a no trade clause, but nobody's going to take on Stanton, even if you would to sign off on a trade. Nobody's going to take him on because he stinks. He can't run. The guy can't stay healthy. I saw this stat today about Stanton, which just shows you the bad signing it was. It was a stat today I saw on Stanton about the whole, like his contract, how much he's gotten paid for actually playing and how much he's gotten paid for time missed. And it comes out to be, I believe it came out to be like Stan has actually gotten paid more when he was injured than actually playing. Like he's actually missed more time than he's actually played. The guy, that's just pathetic. That's just flat out pathetic. And the guy can't run. He's slow. You got the manager saying it's a good idea for IKF to bunt with Stanton on first base. Like, how does that add up? What analytic told you that? But what number told you what number told you that, Boone? To have IKF bunt with Stanton on first base. Like, it makes no sense. Makes no sense. The guy can't run. The guy can't even play the outfield. He went from playing the outfield every day in Miami to coming to the Yankees, and the guy just can't play. I mean, he can't. So nobody's going to want to take that on. Nobody's going to want to take it on. Unless if you eat it and you eat a ton of the contract, which I don't think Hal Steinbrenner and the Yankees are going to be willing to do. If it was Steve Cohen, he would be willing to do that. But, again, I keep saying this. The Mets are better set up for the future than the Yankees. They are. They restocked their farm. They're going to invest in player development, and they've got an owner that is all in on winning. I can't say the same about the Yankees. The Yankees do not invest in their farm. They do not have good player development. They did not retool their farm system at the deadline. And I can't say that Hal Steinbrenner is all in on winning because he's not. He's just not. He's not. And until that changes, this is going to be the same thing for a very long time. It's really what it comes down to. I've lost a lot of energy with this team. As you could tell, I wasn't really ranting there. I mean, it's just, there's not much else you could say other than the team stinks. And, the whole, again, too, enough of the whole, putting on the pinstripes, pinstripes way more. The Yankee brand, give me a break. All that's lost. They're just another franchise. That's what they've turned into. That's really what the Yankees have turned into. And the pinstripes are just another uniform. And they're ugly now because the uniforms have actually gotten uglier because they thought it'd be a good idea to put the Star Insurance patch on them, which is just completely ridiculous. They thought it'd be a good idea to put that patch on it, which looks stupid. I mean, I think it's not, I mean, it fits well because the team that's wearing it is terrible, so it fits well on the team that is wearing it, but like, the Yankees are not the Yankees. They just aren't. They just aren't. Like, no, nationally, nobody's talking about the Yankees, really, nationally anymore. It's because they stink. So many other teams have overtaken them. You look at it in a New York sports spectrum. The Yankees for many years have been the top of the New York sports. You look at it now, a whole lot of other teams are talked about a lot. I mean, I know we talked about the Yankees are talked about a lot more, but in terms of a successful light, you look at the Giants and the Jets. They're getting a whole lot more attention in terms of a successful light and a positive outlook than the Yankees. Like, the Yankees have turned into just another team, and you know, it's so bad that the Mets might actually be ahead of the Yankees in a year here. And that's bad. Like, the Mets surpassing you is not a good thing. You do not want a little brother to pass you in anything. The Yankees, that's how bad it's become. They're a big brother team, but the other little brother team is about to surpass them in terms of actually getting things right and turning things around when this organization still doesn't realize that there's major problems. And they won't. I don't know what it will take. Maybe it takes a 50-win season. I don't know what it's going to take. Because obviously, this year, they haven't done anything, even though they're 4 games under 500. And again, I talked about it. Right now, if you were to place a bet on the Mets or the Yankees making the playoffs, you'd actually, you know, the Mets would actually make a little bit more sense because they're 7 games out of a wild card spot. The Yankees, on the other hand, are 9 games out of a wild card spot. The Mets have a 1.9% chance of making the playoffs. The Yankees have a 0.5% chance of making the playoffs. The Mets actually have a better chance of making the postseason than the Yankees, and the Mets aren't even trying to win. They aren't even trying to win, and they have a better chance of making the playoffs than the Yankees. I mean, if that's not bad or tells you all you need to know, I really don't know what does. What will? Anyway, we'll get you set for the Mets Braves tonight. It'll be David Peterson versus Alan Winans, I think his name is, for the Braves. He's 1-0 with a 1.59 ERA. David Peterson's 3-7 with a 5.45 ERA going for the Mets tonight. Yankees day off. They'll be back tomorrow against the Nationals. They'll probably lose 2-3 against the Nationals because the Nationals have actually been playing some good baseball. Last night took care of business against the Phillies 4-3. Nationals are rebuilding, but they've got some nice young pieces. They've got Josiah Gray, they've got Mackenzie Gore, 2 good young pitchers to top their rotation. They've got Lane Thomas, C.J. Abrams. The Nationals have some young pieces. Obviously, they restocked the farm system. They've got some other pieces coming up the pipeline as well. The biggest thing with the Nationals, I think, is kind of figuring out their whole bullpen, because I've seen a lot of games where they've blown this year. So you'll get to see the Nationals at Yankee Stadium this weekend as the Yankees look to avoid a 9th, 10th, and 11th straight loss if they get swept again. So we'll see. Anyway, that'll do it for an episode of the Bubbs on Sports podcast. We'll be back tomorrow, potentially a live stream tomorrow, talking all things Jets, getting you set for Giants week. Any Aaron Rodgers talk, Becton chatter, looking at the final remaining position battles for this Jet team. So we'll get into that tomorrow, I believe, on a live stream. So, stay tuned. A lot more content coming your way. As always, hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.